How now, brown cow? We're live? Thanks for tuning into Channel Ocho News. I'm Zachary Spearman. Today we'll be looking into the world of psychology. First, I have a couple of headlines for you. As many of you know, Dr. Phil has been elected president of APA. I'm sure many of our local psychologists are not happy about this, and I think we're going to find out a little bit more as the story progresses. Another person who has made her way back into the news, Miley Cyrus. She may actually be the descendant of Sigmund Freud, and I don't think any of us would be surprised to find that out. For the rest of the broadcast, we're going to be looking at ethical issues in human relations. Our wonderful actors here at Channel Ocho News have reenacted some of the stories we have reported from our area. The first scene demonstrates what can happen when a therapist tries to pursue a relationship with a client.
So Zara, how have you been since our last session?
Well, I finally went on my first date since Fabio died, and, it was okay. I was thinking about Fabio the whole time, so I felt so guilty, and I don't know, the chemistry it wasn't there.
That's natural. It'll get easier with time.
Yeah, you're right.
To be honest, for a while now, I've actually thought you were really attractive, and I'd love to take you out for a drink sometime. I think it'd be therapeutic.
Really? Is that allowed, or are we allowed to do that?
It's okay.
Yeah? Oh, well, I'd love to go on a date with you.
Yeah, it's Friday, son.
That's great.
Great.
So now we're going to see how this can become problematic in therapy.
Hey babe, how was your day?
It was good. Well, actually, I kind of lost my job.
Why didn't you tell me?
I knew we had a session, so I figured why not talk about it here. But actually, since you brought that up, I was thinking of getting into stripping, and want to try.
That's a terrible idea.
Why? I mean, I have so much loans I need to pay off.
I don't want a girlfriend who's a stripper.
But why not? It's still me. I'm not changing.
I don't care. That's embarrassing.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I think it's a great job. I'm going to be making a lot of money. I mean, why not?
You know what? I can't talk to you right now. I think you're being ridiculous. I think this session's over. You need to go.
It's fine.
Wow. That is shocking to see that these things occur in our society. I'm going to turn it over to Channel Ocho's ethics correspondent, Hillary Circus. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Zachary.
So I'm assuming that this goes against basic ethics in psychology.
Yes. When people are hurting, unhappy, frightened, or confused, they may seek help from a therapist. The therapeutic relationship is a special one, and it is characterized by exceptional vulnerability and trust.
So how often does this actually occur in our community?
A relatively small minority of therapists take advantage of their clients' trust and vulnerability and their position of power, but it occurs enough that it needs to be addressed in the ethics code.
Okay, so I'm sure that many of those watching are curious to hear more about what the APA Ethics Code specifically states about these issues.
Yes, there are 12 points in Standard 3, which is human relations. For multiple relationships, a therapist should refrain from entering into a multiple relationship with their client if it could be harmful to their objectivity as a psychologist. However, multiple relationships that would not reasonably be expected to cause harm are not unethical. If the psychologist finds that a potentially harmful multiple relationship has arisen, they take reasonable steps to resolve it. When a psychologist is required by law to have a role in one or more administrative proceedings, they clarify their role expectations at the beginning of therapy.
Thanks, Hillary. Now we're going to look at another scene based on something that has occurred in our community. This time, it'll feature a different type of relationship.
Rachel, I think that was a great session, and we've made headway, and work on more next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I go, though, I just want to let you know I've recently got into house flipping. I've been enormously successful with it. I don't know if you're interested in. I don't know if, everyone kind of needs money on the side. So I have my business card if you want. I can give it to you. If you want to start investing too, I can definitely get you set up.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great.
Okay, great. Give me a call whenever you can, and I will see you next week. Okay,
all right.
Great, thanks.
So now we're going to look at how relationships that revolve around financial issues can be problematic in therapy.
Hi, Doc. How are you this week?
Great. How are you?
I'm last talked, I can't even wait to get started.
That's awesome. Before we start, though, I just want to check in on how my investment's doing.
About that, I'm not seeing as much profit as I usually do with this house. I don't really know what's going on with it, but it doesn't look like it's really working out.
What do you mean? What's the issue? What's the problem?
There's could be so many different things. Like the market's kind of dry right now. Like a bad neighborhood.
Bad neighborhood. That is the house you told me to get in that neighborhood.
I know, but there's no way for me to predict these kind of things. I'm not a genie. I don't have a ball. I can't just guarantee things are gonna happen. But look, I'm being charged for this. Can we please get on with the session?
Oh, I'm so sorry that you're being charged for this. I'm more concerned right now about the money you charged me that is now all gone.
I'm sorry, but can we get over this? This is irrelevant.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's start therapy. And from now on, every week I'm going to be charging you extra until I recoup the money that you lost.
That is ridiculous. That has to be illegal or something. No. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm sorry. You can keep your papers, shove it.
Okay, let's again talk to our ethics correspondent, Hillary Circus.
As you can tell from this clip, the client has facilitated a dual relationship with her therapist. However, it is the therapist's job not to allow this to happen. In this specific situation, the dual relationship is one where the therapist isn't just her therapist, but is a business associate. Therapists should seek to avoid dual relationships. So if they are already a friend, business associate, or whatnot, they should refuse to become your therapist. This also works in reverse. Your therapist should never offer to become your friend, lover, business associate, etc.
In this case, the ethics code states that psychologists refrain from taking on a professional role when a financial relationship exists because, as we saw, it can impair the effectiveness of therapy. Even well-intended psychologists may be less objective and fair in determining others' best interests when these conflict with their own.
So now we have one more clip to show you, and I warn you, it is shocking to see that this actually occurs.
You know, it's just been really difficult for me lately.
I know, and we've spent a lot of sessions talking about this, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. You can always reach me anytime, even after the office hours. You can always reach out to me. Give us a call, leave a voicemail. If it's an emergency, remember to call 911 if anything.
What you doing?
Have you been going to the gym lately?
I have. It's kind of going off.
I mean, going to the gym and exercising can be absolutely therapeutic, so if you've been doing that, I would definitely keep that up, okay? So we'll see you next week. Keep going to the gym. We'll see you then, okay?
All right.
Let me walk you out.
Okay.
So next week at 3, okay?
All right.
All right, let's see what happens when the client calls back.
Dr. Stanley's office, how can I help you?
Hi, this is Eric Spinner. I'm just calling. I wanted to discuss our last session. I was very uncomfortable with how it ended.
What do you mean? How did it end? It ended fine as far as I can remember. We talked about you continuing your therapy sessions, continuing going to the gym. What is your concern exactly?
Well, you started by stroking my arm while talking to me, and then as I left, you smacked my ass. I mean, you don't think that that's inappropriate?
I mean, I was just kind of trying to keep the mood light. I know you were having a hard time, so I'm just, being funny. Haha. Do you not get that?
No, and I'm very uncomfortable, and the fact that you don't think that this is a big deal really worries me, and I don't think we should see each other anymore, and I think I'm going to report this because I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
Well, fine. Do what you need to do, but, wow.
I don't even know how to respond. It's disgusting, and I can't believe that this happens when people seek therapy. You have to agree with me, right, Hillary?
Of course. It is a complete boundary violation occurring when one person's safe place is invaded by another. The number of sexual harassment complaints against healthcare professionals is unfortunately increasing at an alarming rate. Sexual harassment is, to say the least, a very complex problem. It encompasses issues of sex, gender, power, and communication, as well as, in some cases, a real pathology on the part of the healthcare professional. Because such professionals are in a position of power relative to their clients, the law holds them to a higher standard of behavior. They are required to place the interests of their clients above and before their own.
Psychologists do not engage in sexual harassment. As you saw, the client thought the behavior from the therapist was unwelcome, and he called the psychologist to tell her how he felt. It is important to note that sexual harassment can consist of just one single act, as we saw. However, in other cases, it can happen over time.
That's all for tonight's broadcast. There'll be an additional segment about the APA Ethics Code. I'm Zachary Spearman. Thank you for watching.
And now we're going to move on to the other standards of human relations. 3.01 Unfair Discrimination. In their work-related activities, psychologists do not engage in unfair discrimination based on age, gender identity, race, ethnicity, culture, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, disability, socioeconomic status, or any basis prescribed by law. A common dilemma would be when psychologists fail to consider the validity of assessment practices for specific groups, unfair discrimination is most likely to occur.
Standard 3.03 Other Harassment. Psychologists should not knowingly engage in behavior that is harassing or demeaning to persons with whom they interact at their work with. These factors include some of the following: someone's age, gender, race, ethnicity, culture, religion, disability, language, or socioeconomic status. Some common dilemmas that psychologists run into is if they lack experience or sensitivity to certain cultures or certain diverse groups. Standard 3.04 Avoiding Harm. Psychologists should take reasonable steps to avoid harming any clients, patients, students, supervisees, research participants, organizational clients, and others with whom they work, and to minimize harm where it's foreseeable and avoidable. A common dilemma is when psychologists lose sight of the need to avoid harm, or when they place their own interests before those with whom they work. Psychologists who do this are at greater risk for these things.
Standard 3.07 Third-party requests for services. When psychologists agree to provide services to a person or entity at the request of a third party, psychologists attempt to clarify at the outset of the service the nature of the relationship with all individuals or organizations involved. Oftentimes, the parties have differing expectations of control of information with the psychologist. Standard 3.08 Exploitative relationships. Psychologists do not exploit persons over whom they have supervisory, evaluative, or other authority, such as client, patients, students, supervisees, research participants, and employees. Psychologists often rationalize reasons for participating in exploitative relationships.
Standard 3.09 Cooperation with other professionals. As healthcare moves to a more interdisciplinary model, it is essential that we work with other professionals to serve our clients. In some cases, frequent delayed responses to other professionals can be seen as a violation of the Ethics Code. 3.10 Informed consent. This was one of the important points that was not included in the broadcast. It is important to obtain informed consent from the client so that they understand the direction of therapy. If the client is unable to give consent, the therapist should still explain the informed consent and get assent from the client, and when possible, consent from a legally authorized person. It is important that the therapist document this process. Finally, therapists must inform the nature of services, which can often include court-ordered therapy and limits to confidentiality. This can become an ethical dilemma when a psychologist fears that a client will not disclose information because they know that this could be used in court. Studies have demonstrated that this does not have a negative impact on client disclosure. However, by not discussing this information at the outset of services, this could put the therapist's license in jeopardy.
3.11 Psychological services delivered to or through organizations. A. Psychologists delivering services to or through organizations provide information beforehand to clients and, when appropriate, those directly affected by the services about the nature and objectives of the services, the intended recipients, which of the individuals or clients, the relationship the psychologist will have with each person and the organization, the probable uses of services provided and information obtained, who will have access to the information, and limits of confidentiality. As soon as feasible, they provide information about the results and conclusions of such services to appropriate persons. B. If psychologists will be precluded by law or by organizational rules from providing such information to particular individuals or groups, they so inform those individuals or groups at the outset of the service. A common dilemma would be when the best interests of an individual client and those of the organization are incongruent. 3.12 Interruption of psychological services. Unless otherwise covered by contract, psychologists make reasonable efforts to plan for facilitating services in the event that psychological services are interrupted by factors such as the psychologist's illness, death, unavailability, relocation, or retirement, or by the client's relocation or financial limitations.